everyone, my name is Laurel. I'm a public policy and management master's student here at U of G. I'm from the United States and I'm going to give a few budgeting tips and tricks for your year abroad here. All right, so the biggest aspect of your budget obviously is going to be rent. I'm not going to go into too many details about this because I think this kind of varies depending on what neighborhood you're living in, if you're doing student accommodation versus private. But I will say private is going to be a little bit cheaper than student accommodation. So that is what I elected to do. It is going to be a little bit less secure in finding an accommodation than student accoms, but it is possible, and there's going to be a video linked in the bottom on our advice on how to find a private accommodation. So being a private let versus student accommodation, you're going to have to think about utilities. So in the wintertime, we pay about each an extra 80 pounds, and then the summertime we pay about an extra 50 pounds. So obviously in the winter you're using more gas and electricity, so it's going to be more expensive, so make sure to factor that into your budget. All right, so the next biggest thing is going to be food. Obviously making food at home is going to be cheaper than eating out. This is one of the biggest ways that I save money. I bring a packed lunch to school with me most of the time, and I also eat most of my dinners at home as well. I'll probably eat out maybe once a week. Lately, we'll say in the first semester, I ate out a little bit more, and I kind of just pace myself depending on what my budget is looking like for that month. So here's what an average grocery haul for me looks like, and this cost me about 30 to 40 pounds. Usually my groceries last me about a week and a half to 2 weeks, with some top offs here and there. So I spend about 100 pounds on groceries a month. Sometimes this bumps up to like 130 depending on how fancy I'm feeling. Some of the ways that I save money on food while grocery shopping is shopping at cheaper grocery stores like Aldi's, Lidl, Morrison's is pretty reasonable, and then using my club card at the big Tesco's instead of the Tesco Expresses because the big Tesco's are cheaper as well. I also shop with the like little yellow stickered items a lot of the times. At the end of the day, they'll put out food that's about to go bad at a reduced cost, so I pick up a lot of my fresh vegetables and such from there. All right, so the next biggest thing that you're probably wondering about is going to be the price of going out, the price of eating out, getting drinks, entertainment, having fun. So again, I do try to reduce my overall bills. So during different periods, I try to go out less depending on how kind of my monthly situation is looking. I will say an average main dish here in Glasgow at the types of restaurants that I go to and a little bit are more on the affordable side are going to be on average between 12 pounds and 18 pounds with tip included. Not everywhere requires a tip, but a lot of places do put on an extra added gratuity, and so that's something to consider. I spend about 30 to 40 pounds each month on eating out at restaurants. A way that I really significantly reduce the costs of my eating out habits is by going to certain places that offer deals or student discounts and really trying to stick to those low cost budget restaurants. That's gonna be like Mrs. Falafel that does a 5-pound wrap near St. Andrew's building. It's gonna be Bread Meets Bread on Mondays because they offer a 50% student discount. And a few other, if I'm on campus and I really need some food, I'll stick to some of the student unions since they also offer a lot cheaper, reduced price food. The Gilchrist is a good place to get coffee. It's going to be a little bit cheaper than those really nice coffee shops that are very tempting and very close to campus. That's another thing. I also make coffee at home. Coffee can be a really big spending habit. It's just a little treat, but it does rack up. I would say on average coffees here cost about 3 to 4 pounds per coffee. So one of the ways I save money is honestly by making coffee at home. Another way I save on food is through the Tesco meal deal. I want to hear no slander about the Tesco meal deal. The Tesco meal deal is incredible. A main, a snack, and a drink. Also, if you forget your coffee, the drink can be a coffee, and it's only £3.60 with your club card membership. So this is not an ad. I love the Tesco meal deal. It's incredible. It's, I think, a really good resource for living on a low budget. All right, so one of the wonderful many treats about living in Glasgow is that it's a really fun city with a lot of gigs, festivals. It's UNESCO's first city of music, so there's always something fun to do in town. So some of the ways that I save on this is, again, going to places that offer student discounts. There are some places on Ashton Lane that offer student discounts on drinks. Go to happy hours, keep your eyes peeled for those types of places. I also really enjoy music, and some of the ways that I save on these there's a lot of big gigs, but some of the way that I save money is going to bars that have live music for a free entrance. So some of these places include a lot of bars in Finiston, just have live music a lot. Block Plus, that does live music every single day and does not charge cover. The school does a really great job of trying to incorporate a school culture. So keep your eyes peeled for those events hosted by the school, because those are going to generally be on the cheaper side. And then also sometimes every once in a while, you can buy day of tickets at the ballet or the theater. Sometimes they'll offer student discounts as well. Gigs, entertainment, drinks, these are all very fun. I definitely recommend getting to know the city, but it will take out a portion of your budget. These are kind of more expensive activities to keep in mind. I would say I spend about 30 to 40 pounds each month on entertainment. All right, so next up in my budget is going to be transportation. This might be a little bit higher in your budget. I specifically chose a flat that was close enough to campus that I could walk to the majority of places that I needed to go, because I did not want to factor this into my budget at all. This was not something I wanted to think about. That being said, to save some money, I do use the subway to get to most of the places I need to go. The buses or the trains can be a little bit more direct, but they're gonna be, particularly the buses, if you're traveling locally, is gonna be more expensive. Additionally, I also like to take once a month a day trip or a weekend trip just to get outside of Glasgow and get to know more Scotland. I would say in general, I spend about 30 to 50 pounds on transportation. This includes local transportation and out-of-town transportation. Here's a few more tips. If you live close to campus, you might have to rework some of those details. Go ahead and check out the prices for what a regular day is going to look like for you if you don't live close to campus. Okay, so that brings us to international travel. So this is something I wouldn't consider in my monthly budget. This is something I'll reserve for my annual budget, make sure I have money set aside for this, and then just save it for that time in that place. But I will say this, TikTok kind of lies. I think like the perspective I was being told was that flights were going to be super, super cheap throughout Europe. And while they are cheaper than some of the US domestic flights, they are not as cheap as I thought they were going to be. I was told they were going to be 30 to maximum 60 pounds. But what ends up happening is these tickets do exist, but they're extremely inconvenient and are not compatible with my study schedule. So I've had to get kind of more regularly priced flights. These tickets ended up being about 100 to even 250 pounds at times to different areas of Europe. I wanted to explore Europe. This was something I was able to set aside in my budget, again, my annual budget, because I did want to go to a few of those bucket list places while I was here. But if you don't have the money for that, you're thinking, wow, I don't have 100 to 250 pounds to spend on a ticket to go somewhere, then I will say travel in the UK. UK domestic travel is completely slept on. Scotland is so beautiful, pretty easy to get to for the most part. Also, traveling throughout the UK is going to be cheaper than traveling internationally. Some other monthly fixed costs include some of my subscription. Again, I don't have a lot of subscriptions because I find that this really reduces the cost of my monthly bills, but this will include things like Spotify, Amazon Prime, and Amazon Prime and Spotify both offer student deals. So I make sure that I sign up for as many student deal subscriptions as possible to get a reduced price on my subscriptions per month. Another great tool is looking at apps that kind of you can scroll through and see all the different student discounts on a variety of things. So that's Uni Days and Student Beans. These will give you discounts on beauty products, some household staples, clothing, more food. These are really good resources if you're really trying to stretch that budget. It's important to note when we're talking about budget and moving to a foreign country is setting aside money for that adjustment period. So I would set aside 300 to 500 pounds, depending on how bougie you want to get with it, for that adjustment period. This is going to help you get through those first 3 months where you're trying to make friends, trying to go out as much as possible to develop those connections that are going to help be your social network while you're here for the rest of the year. So definitely setting aside some adjustment period money is a good idea, especially for those first few weeks, if not those first few months. Another random cost you might be thinking about is the cost of school supplies. I would say I personally haven't really had to purchase many school supplies. The university does a really good job at giving you access to a ton of resources here. So I've not yet had to purchase a textbook, which is a big contrast to my undergraduate experience in America. So that luckily has been something I haven't had to factor into my budget. I think it's pretty reasonable to live in Glasgow off of 400 to 500 pounds extra on top of your rent a month. And then if you really want to go bougie, depending on the type of lifestyle that you live, or if you're thinking, hey, I'm only here for a year, I really want to do as many fun things as possible, I would plan for an extra maybe 700 pounds on top of your rent.
All right, now looking over the monthly budget overview, I added a few things to give a more realistic understanding of what I spend in a month. And then looking over at the annual budget, again, I added a few things just to have a better understanding of what your annual budget might look like as well.
There's going to be a few more resources on how to save money and some cost of living expectations.